Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today we are going to be reviewing the custom ATTE model by Boosker. These instructions can be found on brickvault.toys. I will leave the link to that down in the description below. And I did not just build one or even two of these, I built three of them just to show you guys the size and scale of them. And in this video, there is a lot going on, including a review of this model, comparisons to official LEGO sets, as well as comparisons between the normal variant as well as the Clone Wars variant, which you can see on either end here. And we are going to be talking about value, the cost of all the pieces, and also any modifications that I had to make while building, including part substitutions and so much more. So there is a lot to get into today, so we are going to jump right in and start reviewing the model right here. Okay, so for the purposes of the review, I'm going to be focusing on reviewing the standard version, not the Clone Wars variant that you see on either end. So I'm going to take those out and we are going to focus on the normal episode 2 variant, which is the one that you're seeing right now. And this one contains 2,501 pieces, and I bought these instructions as a bundle from brickvault.toys, and I paid $55 for those. This is not a sponsored review. This is just a consumer's perspective on this extremely advanced model. All right, so pretty much I am just starting out by following the instructions step by step. I don't know how much of this I'm allowed to show on camera because I had to pay for these instructions and they're not free online like an official LEGO set. So I will probably end up skipping a portion of the time lapse here just to not get in trouble with that. But the model, you just start with the hull and then you build all of the legs and the panels, and then that's pretty much the entire thing done. So that is fairly straightforward, actually. The instructions were not bad, and we are going to talk about the instructions later on in the video, so stick around for that if this is something that you're considering making. But I had a decent time building this, and mostly that's because I sorted the pieces beforehand so I could actually know where things were, because I've built custom models before and I didn't sort the pieces beforehand and it was miserable. So figured I'd go ahead and make my life just a little bit easier, and also the time lapse probably more enjoyable as well, because otherwise I would have spent 95% of the time lapse just sorting pieces and trying to sift through finding the right part. This model did take me about 8 hours to build, I think, and then maybe like an hour and a half or 2 hours to sort all the pieces. So in total, if you go to the upper end of each of those numbers, it was about 10 hours. I wasn't necessarily rushing to build this, but I wasn't really trying to take my time either. So about 8 hours seems about right. I wasn't really counting the time, but overall, it was a fairly straightforward build, like I've been saying, and so that is pretty much that. So there's a lot of stuff here, and so now that the model is pretty much almost done here, I will let you guys watch the rest of the time lapse, and I won't bother you so much with all my talking, because I'm about to start talking quite a bit once the model is complete and we start the review. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start talking about this model here, but before we do that, we are going to talk about some of the specs. So like I said, 2,501 pieces in this model here. The dimensions of it are 17.5 inches long by about 11.5 inches wide and over 8.25 inches tall. I will put the conversion to centimeters on the screen for you, and it cost about, if you were to buy all of the pieces online, and assuming you had none of them in your collection, it would be between 190 and 230 US dollars. So it's a pretty steep price, but I do think that there is some value to it, and we will get into that in just a bit here. So we're going to take a look at the exterior, and then we're going to look at some of the details on the exterior, and then we're going to look at the interior as well. So starting with the model here, you notice there's a lot of light gray going on here, and a lot of dark gray as well, and then a hint of dark red and also a hint of black. And this is completely accurate to the models in the TV show and also in the movies. And so you'll notice the 6 legs, which is accurate, the bubble turrets, as well as the cannon up top, and all of the other details as well. The Republic logos on here are official LEGO stickers. You don't need to print out any custom decals or anything like that. And each of these panels here is connected to the main hull of the body here. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start to spin this around a little bit for you, just to get a little bit of a sense of size and scale. And so you'll notice on the side here that it has the detail on the legs here, and it has the different sizes of legs as well. The middle two legs, this one and the one on the other side, are larger than these two out here, and each joint of the legs is movable. So if I pick this up for you, you can see that the legs rotate at that joint as well as this one down here. And then the large ones can rotate here, as well as if you use this knob right here, you can you can move the legs down and also move them back up to simulate the movement of the ATTE itself, like how it does in the show. And you can see the legs kind of compressing and expanding as I pick it up and put it back down. So that's pretty cool. And there is a lot of other small details like that around the model here, but I do think that this looks really, really good. And then so coming towards the rear here, you'll see the recessed tile and wedge plate in there. And that was a really, really fun detail to put together. It's really subtle, but it is something nice. Something not nice about the model is actually the blue pin. You can kind of see right there. That's unfortunate, but there's not a whole lot you can do about that because you need that for structure and stability. So that is unfortunate, but the back here has the two bubble turrets, and this is pretty cool. You can see all of the interesting angles that went into this here. And so I think that's really neat that the designer was able to get all of these angles in here. And there are some slight gaps throughout here, but that doesn't really bug me because so much of this is actually not only covered, but also covered in such a good way. And it's accurate to the actual models from the in-universe designs. And so there is a secret detail back here, which we will talk about in just a second here. But coming around to this side, the model is pretty much symmetrical from left to right. So everything that you saw on the left side, you will see again on the right here. And so spinning this around will give you a different perspective of it. So now instead of facing left, it's facing right. And then the cannon up top is able to spin a full 360 degrees. And it can also rotate up and down slightly. So that's good. And then it has space for one minifigure to sit there, and it has a printed console up there as well. So that's pretty cool. And then coming through here, you can see that this is, unfortunately, some of the legs do tend to fall off, but that is just due to the Technic pins that I had used for it. So that is unfortunate, but the model itself, here's a view from the front, I think looks really, really good. And then you'll notice the ice pick details in here and also the cab. And so now that we did a whole roundabout of the exterior, we can go ahead and start to look at the interior a little bit. And so you can see that this comes apart in two sections. So this is the top module right here. And then this is the bottom one here as well. This one's attached with two studs on the front. Now, I already have the figure in there because you have to actually remove one of the panels on the side in order to get the figure in there. So that was kind of a hassle to get him in there, but it is possible, which is good to see. And then, so like I said, this is the second module that comes apart, and then you can just put that back on. There's no console detail in here. There's no printed cheese slope or printed tile or anything like that. So it's kind of unfortunate, but it is nice that you can actually get the figure in there. And then so all you have to do is just put that back on, and then this just rests right on top. There's a little bit of gapping in here with this, but it's not the end of the world. I don't think it looks too bad. So now that that has been taken care of, we can go around the model and I can show you what comes off so you can access the interior. All right, so on the model, like I said, the two components of the cockpit are removable. And then the other two components that can come off are this front section right here. So this all lifts off. There are two Technic pieces on the right there that you can see that lock into these two Technic axles right there. And then so you can get full access to this interior here. So there's a bench on this side and a bench right there. And that is pretty much it for the interior details, but there is a pretty spacious area in the middle to fit some people standing. There is no studs to connect them, unfortunately, but you can have them stand there. And we will try to get a count of how many figures you can fit in this model as a whole. So definitely stay tuned for that. But the Space in here is pretty empty as it's intended to be. So that is good to see that you can actually fit troopers in here. And so it's really impressive that despite its complexity and its size, there is a sizable interior to this. The panels are relatively thin and you can even see through over here, which is not ideal, but it is not the end of the world, like I said. And then coming over to here is the other panel. This is a openable section right here, but it's a little easier to do when you get your finger under it. So you just open that like so. And then if you put this back on the model, you can see how it actually looks here. So it looks like that when it's on the model, which I think is pretty cool. And then you can close it. And then if you want to, you can take the whole panel off for the huge figs to get access to it. And there's a brief shot of the underside of it, which is really cool and complicated. But the back here has the same two benches, one there and one on the other side, and then the consoles, and then the open space right in the back there. So there's a decent amount of space here for people to stand, and then there's an area right there. Now that area right there actually comes down. So let me bring this over to here, and I can show you guys that if you just push on this or you grab it from the underside, this comes down and it's a lift gate essentially. And included in the instructions when you purchase this is the ATRT model. And actually the ATRT model is pretty in scale with minifigures, and we will take a closer look at this in just a second here, but this folds up and it can get on the lift gate here, and then when you're done or you're ready to move out, you can just put that away and you're good to go. So the ATRT does fit on there, and I will show you guys that right now. All right, so once you get the ATRT folded up, just like that there, you can, if you have the panel off on the top, you can just put it through right here and then rest it down. Or what you can do is you can actually just drop the lift gate, and then you can put the ATRT on that. And then as you can see, it fits on the panel, which is really impressive to see. And then this just gets folded up, and then that is pretty much that. So then you would be good to go off into battle. And so putting the panels back on is pretty self-explanatory. You just rest the front one onto those axles there, and then that one is pretty much good to go. And the cannon, as long as it's facing forward, will just rest right on top of the cockpit area. And then the back one doesn't have any axles to latch onto, so it's just laying there with gravity. And then the ATRT is a bit of a snug fit, but it does fit back there. And so that is really nice to see as well. But a lot of these panels are only attached with one, maybe two connection points, whether that's a stud, a hinge, or a ball joint, or perhaps even a bar. So sometimes they do like to rotate in ways that are not intended to be rotated, but you can just rotate them back and it's not the end of the world. All right, so now that we've done an overview of the model here, we are going to take a look at some of the other models that are comparable to this. First and foremost is the Clone Wars variant of the model here. And so I'm placing that right beside it here. And the key difference that you will notice is that the color scheme is a little bit different here. And so pretty much the entire model is exactly the same. The only difference is the red markings. The cockpit is still the same, but the red markings at the front of the Episode 2 version are the only other red markings on the model, whereas the Clone Wars variant has red markings all throughout the middle and also the top legs of the model as well. Now, like I said, these are the same exact size, but there are a couple of other ATTEs in my collection that I want to take a look at here next to the Episode 2 variant, which is actually, to start us off with, the 2022 ATTE here. As you can see, this is the one that came with Commander Cody and also some 212th troopers, and it's actually still on shelves. So if you're interested in picking that up, I will leave an affiliate link to Amazon down in the description for you. But the 2022 ATTE has the same or similar red markings to the custom one here on the left, but a lot of the details are done with stickers, or they just have big plates with studs on the sides. And so it's not as glamorous, but it is definitely suited for play. And also the gun has the stud shooters on it. And the sticker designs are fine, but it is trying to replicate what the custom model does with actual pieces and genuine Lego building, which is really cool to see. But the one bonus that the 2022 ATT has is that it actually has a handle, which is really nice. But the next model here that we're taking a look at is the 2013 ATTE actually. So we're going a ways back here, but if anyone has this in their collection, here you go. The red markings are pretty similar between the two, except the red on the cockpit of the 2013 model has the red stretching all the way down, whereas the custom model has it only on the top half. And you'll notice similar stickers and things like that on the 2013 model, the official Lego set, and even the big legs that are in the middle of the model have the rounded dishes that are printed instead of genuine Lego building. So that is that comparison for you, but the underside of it has a ladder actually, and so you can get access to the rear of the model that way. There's no compartment for the ATRT here, but I think this is still a cool feature that is kind of interesting actually, and so it's not entirely accurate to the model obviously, but thought that was something interesting to note. Instead of having the lift gate for the ATRT, it had a ladder. And here's a top-down shot of the two ATTEs together. And so you can see the 2013 one as well as the 2022 one we saw earlier they're just a little bit smaller than the custom model here. The custom model is designed to be minifigure scale, whereas the official Lego sets are designed to be play scale. And so with that being said, some of the other comparisons that I wanted to make are the 2016 Turbo Tank here. The Turbo Tank is severely downscaled, but it is meant to be as it is a playset. And so that is pretty much that. The color markings and stuff are not really comparable, but I figured I had it in my collection. I wanted to show you guys anyways. And then the other model here is actually the ATAP from 2019. And so this is a pretty cool model, but again, it's a different type of all-terrain transport that the Republic uses. And so if you guys have this in your collection, I hope this gives some sense of scale for you. The next model here is actually the 25th anniversary R2-D2, which is retailing for $100, and it has the Darth Malak exclusive figure in it. Just to give you guys a little bit of size and scale in case you don't have any of those Republic sets. But I thought that was pretty interesting to note. And then moving on to the next model here that I am comparing this to is actually the Coruscant Guard gunship. This is a pretty recent set on Lego's history, but I thought this would be a good comparison to have, and you can see just how small the gunship is compared to the ATTE. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting comparison. And one extra comparison for you would also be the Bad Batch shuttle. So if you guys have either of these sets, here's a top-down shot showing both of the sets next to the ATTE here, just to give you guys a true sense of scale of how big this model actually is when you compare it to official Lego sets. And also here's a comparison to Boosker's custom dropship. So here is a little side-by-side comparison and also an overhead comparison as well. These two models are extremely impressive, and the mechanism works great. And so you can pick up the ATTE, and also if you decide to make Boosker's other models, including the ATOT or the ATAP, they can connect to the dropship and be flown away as well. And one last comparison for you is actually the UCS Venator. I have this in my collection, and so I figured I would share this with you guys. So pretty much, I am just hovering it over the middle of the body here, and pretty much you can get a good sense of scale for the size of the ATTE and also the Venator itself. This probably won't help most people, but I thought that was something interesting to note. And so now is the time to ask the question, how many figures can you fit into this model here? So we're going to go ahead and we are going to get started here. We're going to place all of these troopers in. So we're going to get one reg and a second reg up at the front of the model here on one bench. And then we are going to get a third and also a fourth on the other side of the bench. This is in the front of the model here. And then we are going to shift our attention to the back here. And so, like I said, same deal. We can fit two figures on each bench. And so now, with that being said, we have 8 figures in the hull of the model here. And then we can go ahead and start to add some more figures. So you'd see I'm adding 5s right now and also another trooper. In the back there, they are just free floating. They are not standing on any studs. So if you do pick this model up, they will be flying around in the back there. But I'm going ahead and I'm placing a couple more at the front, which is Hunter and also Tech. And then so you can see I'm trying to fit one more in the front there. And then that is pretty much that. And then so that gets our total up to 13 troopers, which is pretty good. And you can even make that 14 if you choose to put a figure on the ATRT. So we're up to 14 figures now, and then you make 15 when you get the trooper on the top of the cannon. Unfortunately, Tech didn't fit, so I'm going to replace him with a figure that is sitting down instead. And so that's unfortunate that the figure wouldn't fit, but here is the trooper sitting down now, and so we can put him in, and so we're back up to 14, and then we can put the gunner on the top, and that makes 15, and then the one pilot up in the cockpit makes a grand total of 16, and we can place the panel on. And there we go, the troopers are ready to go into battle, and you can bring 16 characters with you, which is really, really cool. And here's a bit of a top-down shot for you. So like I said, the gunner is up at the top here, but removing the panel, you can see that the 2 figures on each bench there makes a total of 4, and then the 2 standing, and then the 1 sitting makes a total of 7 up in the front half here. And shifting our attention over to the back, now you can see by removing this panel here, you can see that there is another 7 in here. And so, like I said, 2 on each bench, and then 5s, and the 501st are standing, free floating on no studs, and then the 7th is on the ATRT. So 14 there, 1 on the gunner seat, and 1 in the cockpit. Now that we've covered the ATT, I want to quickly cover the ATRT that is included in the instructions that you buy. And so pretty much, like I said, this model is fairly small, and it is quite accurate to minifigure scale. And so we're going to give a little bit of a spin around here. And I think this model looks great. You can make this in 501st colors like the advertising pictures do on BrickVault's website, or you can just make it in a generic gray like I have here. But speaking of some 501st models, here is the 2020 ATRT that came with the 501st Battle Pack. And here's the 2013 ATRT. And so pretty much here's a comparison. You can see just how large the other 2 models are. The 2020 is an improvement over the 2013 one, but this custom one blows the other 2 out of the water. But where the other 2 shine is actually in stability. And so you have no problems with playing with it and moving it around and posing it however you want. Whereas this one is a little bit fragile, but I do consider it to be an improvement overall just based on the scale of it alone. And here is a shot of it with the minifigure on it. And so you can see it looks good. The minifigure looks like it's to scale with it, which is exactly the intent of the model. And like I said earlier, it is fragile and it's not the best connections in there. Some of them are illegal going between tiles like that. But overall, I think it's a really good model. And one last comparison for you actually is Captain Rex's Microfighter. Again, I'll leave an affiliate link down in the description if you guys are interested. Those don't cost you anything extra, but it does help support the channel. And so this model here, I'm standing it up for you just to give you guys a little bit of a sense of scale because it's about the same pieces. I think the Microfighter has about 90-ish pieces, whereas the ATRT has 55 pieces. And so it's not super close, but it is close enough. And you can see how the size comparison is. So if you have the Microfighter, hopefully this is of some use to you. All right, so now we are going to talk about the build experience of the model. Like I said, I bought the PDF instructions from BrickVault. You do not buy pieces from them. You buy the PDF instructions and you have to source the pieces on your own. So that's why the price is not $200 for the model. It is $30 for the instructions, and then you get the pieces yourself. And they give an estimate as to how many dollars it is going to cost you if you were to buy all of these pieces. Now, the overall thoughts on the instructions were good. They were fairly easy to follow. They're pretty straightforward, but there were a couple of instances that I had to make modifications, but that's due to part constraints. Like I said, these pieces down here are worth about $8 each in light bluish gray. I don't have any in light bluish gray, and I didn't want to spend $50 to make 3 ATTEs just to get 6 pieces. So I got dark gray variants, and that brought it down to about $10 for all 6 of them. So huge, huge savings right there. But some of the steps were not totally clear. And so there was a couple of steps where the graphic for the subassembly was covering the parts list needed for that step. And then the other steps, there was one step it was actually 476. And I'll put a screenshot on the screen for you right now where you use both a 3 long and a 4 long bar, and it looks like the 4 long bar is on the top because the bar looks longer, but the 3 long bar is actually the one on the top, and the 4 long bar gets inserted into the model, and they did not specify which one was which, and so that actually ended up resulting in me having to rebuild the first ATTE that I made, and so that was kind of unfortunate. But the only other instances where it was not entirely clear was when in step 489, it didn't specify the dark red slopes on the top of the leg here for the Clone Wars variant, whereas in the marketing photos, it does show that. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then a couple steps later, once you're done with the legs, it says ×2, but when you go back to start the legs back 50 or 60 steps prior, it did not specify a ×2, so that is something to keep in mind. Just be on the lookout. If you do buy this model or you buy the instructions and you start to piece this together, just know that you do the legs together at the same time, so you should do a ×2 instead of doing one and then the other. But overall, my build experience was fairly positive. It took me about 8 hours to build, I think, and maybe about an hour and a half to 2 hours sorting all of the pieces. Like you saw at the beginning of the video, before I started building these, I had all of the pieces in one giant pile. I thought that'd be a pretty funny picture, but it was a nightmare to build from that. So I decided to build the first 2 off camera, and then for you guys, I just time-lapsed the last one. So I built the first 2, and then I went ahead and I sorted everything that was left, and then I went ahead and did the time-lapse. So about 1.5 to 2 hours sorting, and it took me about 8 hours to build. I wasn't necessarily trying to go fast, but that is about how long it took me. And then, so now speaking about the modifications of the model here, there were only a couple. Like I said, these dark gray cone pieces right here needed to be swapped out because I didn't want to spend $50 on 6 pieces because that's a little bit ridiculous to me. The only other real modification other than part colors in sections which you can't see in the final product is actually down here on the feet. And so these dishes right here, the old version of the part used to have a bar-sized hole going through the stud, whereas the new variant does not. So if you get the new variant of dish, then you have to put a clip on the stud and then attach the pneumatic T-bar sideways just for that to work properly. And that is the same for all 4 legs. The only other modifications that I made to the model were these silver ice picks. I had these already in my collection, and so I didn't want to go out and buy light bluish gray ones, but it doesn't really matter. The light bluish gray ones aren't super hard to come by, and they're not super expensive, so that is something to note as well, but I figured I'd include it. And that is pretty much it for the model. I followed them almost to a T. The only other exception would be the Clone Wars logos on each front panel here, and so you can see in the instructions, it calls for a 1x3 jumper, and then you place the 2x2 tile on that. And it's the old version of tile that has the X on the underside of it, but I have the new version of the tile, and so the 1x3 jumper and the bracket here wouldn't line up properly for me to use this type of piece. So I swapped out the 1x3 jumper for a 1x3 tile, and I did the same on both sides. And so now we are going to talk about the overall cost of the model here. And so like I said, going back to BrickVault's website, the BrickVault website estimates that if you were to build the episode 2 variant, which you're looking at right now, that would cost you about $190 to $230 US. And if you were to build the Clone Wars variant instead, it would cost you between $200 and $240 US. And then the ATRT is about 10 and so on and so forth. And so I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to buy most of the pieces. I had a lot of these in my collection already, even with buying 3 copies of the model here. So I did not have to spend close to $650. But with that being said, I probably spent about $250 on all of the other pieces because I didn't have a lot of these wedge plates. I didn't have a lot of the other type of wedge plate as well. I needed these dish pieces, and I needed a bunch of tiles and like these, and then some bunch of dark red pieces and things like that as well. And then a lot of Technic stuff as well, like the gears for the main legs here. I didn't have, so I had to order those. I had to order the curved tiles, curved slopes, and all things like that, like Thor's hammers even, and stuff like that. So there was a lot of things that I had to buy, but comparatively speaking to the entire model, it was only a small fraction, which was really nice. So for me and my collection, and even with building 3 of them, I spent maybe 250 bucks, 300 at most. And so honestly, if you were to build one of these completely from scratch and you were to buy every single piece, I don't know if this is entirely worth it. $230 to $240 is a high price for something of this size. But then again, it's a very complicated model and it has a lot of steps in the instructions, and the instructions are easy to follow, and there is a lot going on here. So I do think that there is some merit to it, but overall, if you have some of the pieces in your collection and this is something that you would want, I would highly recommend at least considering it, because if you're a Star Wars fan and you like accuracy, this is definitely the model for you as opposed to an official set that LEGO puts out. But an additional cost on top of all of the pieces, like I talked about, is the instructions itself. I bought the instructions as a bundle with the ATTE and the dropship for $55. And as of recording this video, the instructions on BrickVault's website for all Republic vehicles are on sale at the moment. And so you can get it for less than that. But if you wanted just the ATTE instructions at retail price, it is $29.99. And then with their sale, it's about $21. And so that is not a bad price for instructions, but considering you're literally just getting a PDF, that is kind of steep. But you do get a second PDF, which not only houses the ATRT, but you get a third PDF, which actually has the Clone Wars variant of the top of the model here. So you actually build the top panel in a different instruction booklet, or PDF, I should say. And so my overall thoughts on the model here: is this perfect? No, but I do think that it has a lot of good stuff going for it. It has the scale factor, it has the detail, it has the movability, it has the interior details, and it has the ability to fit 16 troopers plus an ATRT. So that is extremely, extremely impressive. The legs are accurate and they all move, and each of the guns move, and it's a very complicated model, but I do think that there is a lot of value in the accuracy of it as well. And the top hatch is a nice little feature that is not required, but it is definitely something nice. And overall, I'm happy with it. Would I recommend building 3 of these like I've done and that you're looking at right now? No, I would not recommend getting 3 of these. I built 3 of these because I am building a Star Wars mock on Endor, and so I need 3 of them, maybe only 2, but I haven't decided yet. I need a number of these though for that mock, and so I figured I would build these because Boosker did a fantastic job with these models here, and I really, really like them, and I'm extremely happy with it. So huge shout out to Boosker. If I haven't said it already, all of their information will be down in the description. I will leave the link to the Instagram and also to the BrickVault website where you can purchase the instructions and also check out Boosker's Instagram and other builds as well. But that is it from me. I don't want to take too much of your guys' time. Let me know what you think of this model down in the comment section below. Is this something that you would be interested in getting for your own personal collection, or is this something that you'd pass on? Let me know with a comment down below. But overall, if you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe, as well as click the bell notification so you don't miss any future uploads, like when I implement these models into the Endor mock. And if you're not following that series, I highly, highly recommend it. And seriously, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.